Welcome to this explainer. Imagine having a faith so rock solid, so absolutely unshakable, that even the threat of an agonizing death couldn't make you compromise. Today, we're diving into the legendary historical story of Daniel. We're going to discover exactly what it means to bravely trust in Jesus, even when we're staring down some massive, terrifying trials. Let's get right into it.
So, what would you actually do if talking to God was suddenly, against the law? It's a pretty heavy question, right? Just imagine waking up one morning and facing that kind of absolute, terrifying rule. Well, as we'll see in our source text, this wasn't just some hypothetical thought experiment. This is the very real-life nightmare our hero Daniel faced in the ancient kingdom of Babylon.
A prime minister's trap. To really get how this trap worked, we've got to look at the weapon his enemies used. It was this newly engineered decree. Basically, it was a strict law that, if you disobeyed it, meant you were getting thrown straight into a den of lions. These guys literally tricked the king into signing this awful, unchangeable edict that formally outlawed praying to any god or man for 30 days. Well, anyone except the king himself, that is.
Now, you might be wondering, why go to such extreme lengths? Well, Daniel was this profoundly faithful statesman, and he held the super responsible position of prime minister. The crazy thing is, he had absolutely zero flaws in his character or his life. No corruption, no scandals, nothing. Since these envious courtmen couldn't find a single political or personal flaw to use against him, they realized their only option was to attack his unshakable faith. They literally weaponized his own religion against him.
The open windows.
So the decree goes into force. The trap is perfectly set. What does Daniel do? Did he cease to pray because of this new law? I mean, it's a totally natural human response to want to protect yourself, right? You'd really think he might just consider laying low for a month, maybe temporarily hiding his loyalty to God just to stay safe. But to understand his mindset, our explainer links his story directly to the words of Jesus in Matthew chapter 10, verse 28. It says, "And fear not them which kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul." Daniel prioritized his eternal soul. He absolutely feared God far, far more than any human king or their deadly, made-up rules.
And here is that incredible bravery in action. First, he absolutely did not hide his loyalty. Second, he went to his room and deliberately opened his window toward Jerusalem. And third, he prayed aloud with his voice. He didn't just whisper quietly in his heart to avoid getting caught. No way. He lifted his voice exactly as he always did, knowing this was the time he needed to pray the absolute most.
In the lion's den.
Of course, bold actions have serious consequences. That evening, Daniel is thrown into the den of lions. For anyone else, that's an immediate death sentence. But as the long, dark night sets in, the text tells us something amazing. The Son of God was right there with him. Then, morning finally breaks. The king, who was worried sick all night, rushes over and calls out to Daniel.
And what does the anxious king hear? A miraculous reply straight from Daniel 6:22. Daniel shouts back, "My God hath sent his angel, and hath shut the lions' mouths, that they have not hurt me." It's just an astounding moment. God's angel had completely protected him, leaving him entirely untouched by these fierce beasts. Trusting Jesus like Daniel. The source material actually draws a really compelling comparison here for us today. On one side, you have this incredibly harsh reality, being brought into a severe trial or maybe even prison for your faith. But the mindset required to survive it, it's right there on the other side. It's trusting in Jesus exactly as a little child trusts its parents. It's all about boiling your response down to that pure, simple, unwavering reliance, just knowing you're totally safe in your Father's hands. So our source promises that if we maintain that childlike trust when we suffer for Christ's sake, 3 amazing things happen. First, Jesus will literally be right there with you, just like he was in the den with Daniel. Second, the Spirit of the Lord will completely illuminate your understanding with exactly the wisdom you need. And third, through your endurance, you're going to bear a powerful, undeniable testimony to the glory of God. Which brings us to our final question. Since the text insists that right now is the time to cultivate faith, how will you start trusting God today? Seriously, don't wait for your own personal lion's den to try and figure out your faith. How can you intentionally build that unshakable, childlike trust today so that when the test inevitably comes, your window remains wide open?